Did you know that in the United States, a police officer is involved in a shooting every 9 hours? It's a statistic that stops you in your tracks, one that forces you to think about the weight of power, authority, and the decisions made in moments of crisis. But what if the real story isn't about a split-second decision? What if it's about something far more deliberate, something that builds slowly over time, a betrayal of trust so profound it shakes an entire community to its core? This is a story about Sheriff Tom Harris, a man who wore his badge like armor, a symbol of safety and order in the small town of Maplewood. He was the kind of sheriff people trusted instinctively, the kind who waved at kids on bikes, stopped by the diner for coffee with locals, and always seemed to have time for everyone. His presence was reassuring, his authority unquestioned. But what happens when the protector crosses a line? When the person meant to uphold the law begins to bend it for his own desires? It started out quietly, so quietly that no one noticed at first. Emily Parker was just 17 years old, working her part-time shifts at the local diner after school. She wasn't extraordinary in any obvious way. She wasn't the prom queen or the star athlete. She was just Emily, kind, hardworking, and trying to save up for college. Sheriff Harris was a regular at the diner. He'd come in after his shifts, sometimes alone, sometimes with deputies in tow. At first, their conversations were nothing out of the ordinary, a polite exchange between a customer and a waitress. But then something changed. What draws a man like Tom Harris, respected, married, decades older, to someone like Emily? Was it her innocence? Her youth? Or was it something deeper within him, a restlessness he couldn't name, a need he couldn't control? Whatever it was, it grew quickly. The conversations became longer, lingering. The smiles turned into something more personal. And then came the small gestures, an extra tip left on the table, an offer to drive her home when her car broke down one rainy evening. To anyone watching from the outside, it might have looked harmless. But those who knew better might have seen the warning signs. In small towns like Maplewood, secrets don't stay hidden for long. People noticed things, the way Tom seemed to spend more time at the diner than usual, the way Emily's face lit up when he walked through the door. Whispers began to circulate. Have you seen how close they've gotten? Isn't she just a kid? But no one said anything outright. After all, this was Sheriff Harris, a man who had earned their trust time and time again. Who would dare question him? And yet, behind closed doors, something was happening that no one could ignore forever. A relationship was forming, one that crossed every boundary of decency and law. Emily didn't see it that way at first. She thought she was special. She thought this older man saw something in her that no one else did. But what does a 17-year-old really know about love? About power? About manipulation? For Tom Harris, every decision he made brought him closer to a line he couldn't uncross. Every text message sent in secret, every late-night meeting, it all added up to something he couldn't take back. And as their relationship deepened, so did the stakes. What happens when an affair built on lies starts to unravel? When whispers turn into accusations? When a man who once stood as a pillar of integrity becomes the center of scandal? This isn't just a story about forbidden love or poor choices, it's about what happens when power is abused in its most intimate form. It's about trust shattered beyond repair and lives forever changed by actions that can never be undone. But here's the question no one wants to ask: how does something like this happen right under everyone's nose? How does a man like Tom Harris go from being Maplewood's protector to its greatest disgrace? And how does a girl like Emily Parker go from dreaming of her future to becoming part of a tragedy no one will ever forget? This is not just another case file or another headline, it's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about authority, morality, and what happens when those we trust most betray us in ways we never saw coming. Welcome to True Dark Crimes. I thank you, my viewers, especially my subscribers, for your supports as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime stories, mind-blowing murder cases, affairs, city crimes, deals, and dark crime stories. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, comment, and share to your family and loved ones. In the heart of Maplewood, a small town known for its charm and close-knit community, the sun set on a seemingly ordinary day. The streets were lined with familiar faces, laughter echoed from backyards, and the aroma of home-cooked meals wafted through the air. This was a place where trust was paramount, where the sheriff was seen as a guardian of peace and order. Sheriff Tom Harris had been that figure for years, a man who had earned respect through his dedication to service and his unwavering commitment to the safety of his constituents. Yet, beneath this polished exterior lay a narrative that would soon unravel the very fabric of this community. Tom Harris was not just any sheriff, he was a family man, married to Susan for over a decade. They had 2 children who looked up to him as their hero. To the townspeople, he was a beacon of reliability, someone who would go above and beyond to protect them. But as the saying goes, every hero has his flaws, and Tom's were about to be exposed in the most tragic way imaginable. Emily Parker, just 17 years old, was a bright spark in Maplewood. She was known for her infectious laughter and kind heart. As a waitress at the local diner, she served coffee with a smile and listened to the stories of regulars who came in for their morning fix. But Emily carried her own burdens. Dreams of college weighed against the expectations of her family and community. Her life took an unexpected turn when she caught the attention of Sheriff Harris. The dynamics of their relationship were complex and fraught with danger. Tom's fascination with Emily grew from innocent admiration to something darker, a secret affair that began to consume them both. In this small town, where everyone knew each other's business, their clandestine meetings became increasingly risky. They met in hidden corners and exchanged furtive glances, all while knowing that if discovered, their lives would change forever. As rumors began to swirl around town, whispers about their relationship reached Emily's family. Her parents noticed changes in her behavior. Her late nights and distracted demeanor raised red flags. They were protective of their daughter, especially given the societal issues surrounding young women in relationships with older men. The power dynamics at play were troubling. Tom wielded authority not just as a sheriff, but as an adult in a position of trust. This case highlights significant societal issues regarding law enforcement's relationship with vulnerable populations, particularly young women from diverse backgrounds. In many communities across America, stories like Emily's are not isolated incidents. They reflect broader concerns about exploitation and abuse of power. The intersectionality of race and gender adds layers to these discussions, as young women often navigate societal expectations while being subjected to predatory behavior from those who should be their protectors. As tensions mounted in Maplewood, Tom found himself trapped by his own choices. Guilt gnawed at him. He was torn between his responsibilities as a sheriff and his desires for Emily. The affair became an emotional roller coaster, moments of joy overshadowed by fear of exposure. For Emily, what had started as an exhilarating escape from her mundane life quickly morphed into confusion and despair. The significance of this case extends beyond personal tragedy. It serves as a critical examination of police accountability and community trust. When those sworn to protect us become perpetrators of betrayal, it shakes the foundation upon which communities are built. The fallout from such incidents can lead to widespread distrust in law enforcement, a sentiment that reverberates long after the headlines fade. On that fateful night when everything changed, Emily confronted Tom at his office after yet another argument about their future together. Emotions ran high as accusations flew between them, words that cut deeper than either could have anticipated. In a moment fueled by desperation and anger, tragedy struck. A gunshot rang out into the night air. The news spread like wildfire through Maplewood. Sheriff Harris had been involved in an incident with Emily Parker that resulted in her death. Shockwaves rippled through the community as residents grappled with disbelief. How could their trusted sheriff be implicated in such a horrific act? The investigation that followed unearthed layers of deception, text messages exchanged in secrecy, clandestine meetings shrouded in darkness. Detective Elena Marsh took charge of the investigation, determined to uncover the truth behind Emily's death. As she delved deeper into Aisha's life, her friendships, her dreams, she began piecing together fragments of a narrative that no one had prepared for. The more she uncovered about Emily's relationship with Tom Harris, the clearer it became that this was not just an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of abuse. As Marsh examined phone records and surveillance footage from locations near where Emily's body was found, she noticed inconsistencies in Tom's alibi on the night of her death. The pressure mounted on him. Colleagues began to notice changes in his demeanor, nervousness creeping into his interactions with them. At home, Susan sensed something amiss. Her husband's behavior became increasingly erratic as he tried to maintain his facade amid growing scrutiny from both investigators and townspeople alike. Confrontations between them intensified as Susan demanded answers about his late nights and secretive phone calls. The case unfolded like a true crime drama, the tension palpable as detectives worked tirelessly to connect dots while community members struggled with feelings of betrayal and loss. As details emerged about Tom's affair with Emily Parker, a girl they all thought they knew, the town faced its darkest hour. This story is not just about one sheriff's fall from grace, it is emblematic of larger societal issues surrounding power dynamics between law enforcement and vulnerable individuals. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about trust, authority, and accountability within our communities. As we reflect on this tragic tale, a narrative woven through deception and heartbreak, we must ask ourselves, how do we safeguard our communities against those who exploit their positions for personal gain? And what can we do to ensure that justice is served for those whose lives are forever altered by betrayal? As the sun dipped below the horizon on a warm summer evening in Maplewood, the town's vibrant life continued unabated. Children played in the streets, and families gathered for barbecues, blissfully unaware of the dark undercurrents that were beginning to surface. The story of Sheriff Tom Harris and Emily Parker was one that would soon shatter this peaceful existence, but it began innocently enough, an encounter that would change everything. It was a typical day at the Maplewood diner when their paths first crossed. Emily, with her bright smile and youthful exuberance, served coffee to patrons as she had done countless times before. Sheriff Harris entered, his presence commanding respect. He was known for his charm, often engaging in light banter with the waitstaff and regulars alike. Initially, their interactions were harmless, a few jokes exchanged over breakfast orders, a compliment here and there. But as summer progressed, something shifted. Tom's visits became more frequent. He lingered longer than necessary, drawn to Emily's laughter and warmth. What began as innocent flirtation quickly escalated into something more intimate. He would sit at the counter, leaning in closer as they talked about her dreams of attending college. Emily felt special. She was receiving attention from someone powerful and respected in their community. Yet, beneath the surface of this budding relationship lay warning signs that neither of them fully recognized. As their connection deepened, subtle red flags began to emerge. Tom started asking Emily personal questions about her family life, her friends, and her aspirations. He seemed genuinely interested but also possessive, wanting to know where she was at all times. Emily brushed off these concerns. After all, he was the sheriff, a protector of their town. How could someone like him pose any real threat? Yet whispers began to circulate among townsfolk. Some noticed Tom's lingering gaze when he thought no one was watching, or how he would often offer Emily rides home after her shifts ended late at night. Friends began to express concern. Sarah, Emily's closest confidant, sensed something was off but struggled to articulate it. "He's just being nice," Emily would insist, brushing aside any doubts. As summer turned into fall, significant milestones marked the progression of their relationship, each one more alarming than the last. One evening after a particularly busy shift at the diner, Tom invited Emily to join him for a drive through the countryside, a seemingly innocent offer that would alter the course of both their lives. During that drive, they shared secrets under a blanket of stars. Tom spoke of his struggles as sheriff, the pressures of maintaining law and order in a small town, and how lonely it could be at times. Emily listened intently, feeling a connection grow between them that transcended mere friendship. But this moment also marked a turning point. It was then that Tom crossed an invisible line. In subsequent weeks, their meetings became more frequent and clandestine. They would meet in secluded spots away from prying eyes, behind the diner or at a nearby park after dark. Each encounter heightened the thrill but also deepened the danger they faced. As rumors circulated through Maplewood like wildfire, there were public incidents that raised eyebrows and prompted complaints about Tom's behavior. A local resident reported seeing him parked outside the diner late at night with Emily inside his car, a sight that made many uncomfortable but didn't prompt immediate action against him. Then came an incident during a community event at the town square, a festival celebrating Maplewood's heritage. Tom had been drinking more than usual and appeared overly affectionate toward Emily in front of onlookers. His hand brushed against her back as he leaned down to whisper something in her ear. Laughter filled the air around them, but Sarah watched with growing concern. "Emily, we need to talk," she insisted later that evening when they were alone. "This isn't right. You can't keep seeing him like this." But Emily shrugged off her friend's warnings. She was enamored by Tom's attention and convinced that their bond was special. The critical interactions between Tom and Emily grew increasingly intense as their relationship progressed toward its tragic conclusion. One pivotal moment occurred during a late-night rendezvous at an abandoned barn on the outskirts of town, a place they believed would provide privacy away from curious eyes. Inside the dimly lit space filled with dust and echoes of laughter from years past, emotions ran high as they shared stolen kisses and whispered dreams for the future. But amid this intimacy lurked an undercurrent of tension. Tom's desperation to keep their affair hidden clashed with Emily's yearning for validation. "Promise me you won't tell anyone," he urged one night, his voice low and serious as he looked deep into her eyes. "You know how people talk." The weight of his words hung heavy between them. Emily nodded solemnly, but felt a flicker of doubt ignite within her. In another instance, during a quiet drive home after an evening spent together, Tom suddenly turned serious as he gripped the steering wheel tightly. "You have to understand how much I care about you," he said earnestly, his tone shifting from playful to intense. "But we have to be careful. If anyone finds out," his voice trailed off ominously. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never seen this side of him before. The man who had once seemed so charming now appeared unsteady and unpredictable. Yet she brushed it aside again. Love has a way of clouding judgment. As winter approached and tensions mounted within both their lives, Tom's marriage strained by his growing obsession with Emily while Emily grappled with feelings of guilt, their relationship reached a boiling point. The affair had become an all-consuming secret that threatened to unravel everything they held dear. On that fateful night when everything changed forever, January 23rd, Emily confronted Tom about their future together during one of their clandestine meetings at his office after hours. Emotions erupted as accusations flew between them. Words exchanged became daggers aimed at each other's vulnerabilities. In that moment, fueled by desperation and fear of losing what they had built together, a life shrouded in secrecy, Tom snapped under pressure. A gunshot rang out into the night air as chaos descended upon them. Time seemed to freeze as reality shattered around them. The aftermath left Maplewood reeling. The sheriff who once embodied safety now stood accused of taking an innocent life in cold blood, a tragedy born from choices made in darkness now exposed to light. As investigators pieced together what had transpired behind closed doors, their love story transformed into something far more sinister. The community faced its darkest hour. Betrayal by one of its own leading figures who had crossed every line imaginable while hiding behind a badge meant for protection. This case serves not only as a cautionary tale about power dynamics within relationships, but also highlights broader societal issues regarding trust in law enforcement. Issues that resonate deeply within communities across America today as they grapple with questions surrounding accountability and justice for those who fall victim to abuse by those sworn to protect them. As the cold winds of January swept through Maplewood, the town was blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing in the shadows. The night of January 23rd would forever change the lives of countless residents, igniting a firestorm of questions and heartache that would echo through the community for years to come. What truly happened in that sheriff's office? How did a relationship built on secrecy and desire spiral into tragedy? The events leading up to Emily Parker's death remain shrouded in mystery, leaving behind a trail of speculation and disbelief. Witnesses reported hearing a single gunshot pierce the stillness of the night, followed by a haunting silence that seemed to envelop the town. But what led to that fateful moment? Was it a confrontation gone wrong? A desperate act fueled by fear? Or was it something more calculated, a choice made in a moment of panic? As news spread like wildfire, Maplewood was gripped by shock. Friends and family members struggled to comprehend how someone they had trusted could be involved in such an act. The sheriff, a man known for his commitment to justice, was now at the center of an investigation into the murder of a beloved young woman. Emily's family was devastated by her sudden loss. Her mother, Karen Parker, could hardly find words to express her grief. "She was my sunshine," she said through tears, clutching a framed photograph of Emily from her high school graduation. "She had so many dreams: college, travel, making a difference in the world. How could this happen?" Karen recalled Emily's laughter filling their home, her endless curiosity about life, and her determination to succeed. "She wanted to be a teacher," she shared, her voice trembling. "She loved kids and wanted to inspire them like her own teachers inspired her." The pain of losing a daughter with so much potential weighed heavily on Karen's heart, leaving an emptiness that could never be filled. Friends like Sarah also struggled with the loss. "Emily was always there for me," she said, her voice breaking as she remembered their late-night talks and shared dreams about the future. "I never thought I'd lose her like this." Sarah recounted how Emily had confided in her about Tom Harris, how excited she was about their connection, but also how she sometimes felt uneasy about their age difference. "I wish I had pushed harder," Sarah lamented. "Maybe if I had said something sooner." As the investigation unfolded, Maplewood found itself divided. Some residents rallied behind Sheriff Harris, insisting he was being unfairly targeted. "He's always been there for us," one neighbor argued passionately at a town meeting held just days after Emily's death. "We can't let rumors destroy his reputation." But others were quick to voice their outrage. "How can we trust someone who would do this?" another resident shouted back, tears streaming down her face as she thought of Emily. Dramatic pauses punctuated these discussions, moments when silence hung heavy in the air as people processed their emotions: anger, grief, confusion, all swirling together like a storm cloud ready to burst. Witnesses began coming forward with their accounts of that night, their stories filled with uncertainty and fear. One diner employee recalled hearing raised voices coming from Tom's office shortly before the gunshot rang out. "It sounded like they were arguing," she said, her eyes wide with disbelief as she recounted what she had heard just moments before everything changed. As investigators pieced together evidence from that night, they discovered critical moments that painted a troubling picture of what transpired between Tom and Emily. Text messages exchanged between them revealed escalating tensions. Emily expressed doubts about their relationship while Tom's responses grew increasingly desperate. "Please don't leave me," one text read, a plea that echoed with urgency and fear. Another message sent hours before their confrontation hinted at Emily's desire for clarity. "I can't keep doing this if it's just going to hurt us both." These messages became pivotal pieces of evidence that illustrated not only their emotional turmoil but also Tom's growing possessiveness over Emily. On the night of January 23rd, as Emily entered Tom's office for what would be their final confrontation, the atmosphere was charged with unresolved feelings, love intertwined with fear and desperation. Witnesses later recounted hearing muffled voices through closed doors, an exchange filled with tension that hinted at an impending explosion. When that gunshot rang out, it shattered more than just silence, it shattered lives and dreams alike. In those first moments after hearing it, witnesses were frozen in shock. Some rushed toward the sheriff's office while others dialed 911 with trembling hands. "I thought it was fireworks at first," one bystander recalled later during interviews with investigators. "But then I saw people running. I knew something was wrong." In those frantic seconds following the shot, panic spread through Maplewood like wildfire. People gathered outside the sheriff's office as sirens wailed in the distance. When news broke that Emily Parker had been shot dead in Tom Harris's office, disbelief turned into outrage. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd gathered outside as they processed what had just occurred. In the days following Emily's tragic death, Maplewood descended into mourning. Vigils were held outside the diner where she worked, Candles flickered softly against the cold night air as friends and family shared stories of her kindness and spirit. Each candle lit symbolized not only remembrance but also hope for justice, a hope that resonated deeply within those who loved her. As investigations continued into Sheriff Harris's actions on that fateful night, questions loomed large. How could someone entrusted with protecting his community betray it so profoundly? What led him to pull the trigger? The emotional weight of these questions hung heavily over Maplewood, a town grappling with loss while searching for answers amidst chaos and confusion. And as they faced this dark chapter together, one marked by betrayal and heartbreak, they were reminded that trust once broken is not easily repaired. It leaves scars that linger long after the headlines fade away. This case would become pivotal not only for those directly affected but also for discussions around police accountability and community trust, issues that resonated far beyond Maplewood's borders as they echoed through similar towns across America grappling with their own struggles against betrayal within those sworn to protect them. As investigators worked tirelessly to uncover every detail surrounding Emily's death, the truth remained elusive, a haunting reminder that sometimes even those who seem most trustworthy can become harbingers of tragedy when power is misused in ways we cannot foresee or understand fully until it is too late. As the investigation into Emily Parker's tragic death unfolded, the small town of Maplewood found itself at the center of a gripping true crime narrative. Each day brought new revelations, and with them, a growing sense of unease. What truly happened on that fateful night? The answers lay hidden beneath layers of evidence, witness accounts, and forensic analysis that would gradually come to light. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, witnesses began to piece together their recollections of the events leading up to the gunshot. The first reports came from diner employees who had closed up for the night. "I heard shouting coming from the sheriff's office," one waitress recalled, her voice trembling as she spoke to investigators. "It sounded intense, like they were arguing." Another witness described seeing Emily enter the office with a determined look on her face, her body language suggesting a confrontation was imminent. As news spread throughout Maplewood, residents gathered outside the sheriff's office, their faces etched with confusion and fear. The initial shock quickly morphed into speculation. What could have led to such a tragedy? Some whispered about Tom's increasingly erratic behavior in the weeks leading up to Emily's death. Others questioned whether their relationship had been more than just an affair. As investigators began to sift through the evidence, forensic experts were called in to analyze the scene. Ballistic evidence would prove crucial in reconstructing the events of that night. The first step involved collecting bullet casings and analyzing them for rifling patterns, unique markings left on bullets by the barrel of a firearm. This process would help determine what kind of weapon had been used and whether it matched any firearms registered to Tom Harris. The forensic team also examined the trajectory of the bullet that struck Emily. They meticulously documented entry and exit wounds, noting the angle at which she had been shot. This information would be vital in establishing whether Tom's account of events was consistent with the physical evidence found at the scene. In addition to ballistics, investigators collected gunshot residue from Tom's hands, a standard procedure in shooting investigations. The presence of residue could indicate whether he had fired a weapon recently. As forensic analysts worked tirelessly behind closed doors, tension mounted within Maplewood. Each new finding seemed to shift the narrative surrounding Emily's death. As forensic analysis continued, investigators turned their attention to potential DNA evidence. The concept of molecular ballistics had emerged as a powerful tool in modern investigations. Forensic experts began examining not only blood samples but also traces of backspatter that could be found on Tom's clothing or within his vehicle. This type of evidence could provide invaluable insights into what transpired during the shooting. Detectives collected samples from various surfaces within Tom's office, hoping to find DNA that might link him directly to Emily or reveal more about their interactions leading up to her death. Each piece of evidence gathered added another layer of complexity to an already intricate case. As days turned into weeks, new evidence began surfacing that would alter perceptions and raise more questions than answers. One afternoon, investigators received a tip-off about surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showing Tom's vehicle parked outside shortly before Emily arrived at his office. Eyewitnesses reported seeing him leave just moments before hearing the gunshot, a detail that could either exonerate him or implicate him further. The community held its breath as they awaited updates from law enforcement. Would this footage provide clarity or complicate matters even more? As rumors swirled around town, emotions ran high, residents were desperate for answers but equally fearful of what those answers might reveal. Just when it seemed like investigators were closing in on a definitive timeline of events, another breakthrough occurred. Forensic analysts discovered traces of Emily's DNA on a piece of clothing found at Tom's home, a shirt he claimed he had worn during his shift at work that day. This revelation sent shockwaves through Maplewood. How could her DNA end up there if she hadn't been present? The implications were staggering. Did this suggest a struggle? Or was it possible that Tom had attempted to hide something more sinister? The community grappled with these questions as they awaited further analysis from forensic experts, each moment filled with mounting suspense. Amidst this turmoil, witnesses began coming forward with their own accounts, each adding pieces to an ever-evolving puzzle. One neighbor recounted seeing Tom pacing outside his home late at night after Emily's death. He appeared anxious and distracted, frequently checking his phone as if waiting for someone. Another witness shared how they had overheard an argument between Tom and Susan just days before Emily was shot, a heated exchange filled with accusations and tears. "I heard her say something about feeling betrayed," they recalled. It was clear there was tension in their marriage. These testimonies painted a picture not only of Tom's relationship with Emily, but also his struggles at home, struggles that may have contributed to his emotional state leading up to that tragic night. As investigators continued piecing together these narratives alongside forensic evidence, one question loomed larger than ever: what really happened inside that office on January 23rd? With each new revelation came more uncertainty, each clue revealing layers of complexity that hinted at deeper motivations and hidden truths. The clock ticked down as Maplewood awaited justice for Emily Parker, a young woman whose life had been cut short amid chaos and betrayal. Would they find closure? Or would this case continue spiraling into darkness as more secrets emerged from the shadows? As tensions mounted and emotions ran high within this once peaceful town, all eyes remained fixed on what would unfold next, a gripping tale woven through tragedy and heartache, leaving everyone yearning for resolution in a story still very much alive. As the investigation into Emily Parker's death continued to unfold, the town of Maplewood was rocked by unexpected twists and revelations that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their sheriff and the circumstances surrounding the tragedy. The community, once united in grief, began to fracture as new evidence emerged, evidence that hinted at a darker reality lurking beneath the surface. Just days after the initial reports of Emily's death, investigators uncovered a troubling pattern in Sheriff Tom Harris's past. As they dug deeper into his history, they discovered that he had faced allegations of misconduct before, incidents that had been quietly swept under the rug. Several former deputies came forward with stories of inappropriate behavior, including unwanted advances toward female colleagues and questionable interactions with young women in the community. One former officer, who wished to remain anonymous, recounted an incident from several years prior when Tom had been accused of making suggestive comments to a teenage girl during a routine traffic stop. It was brushed off, the officer recalled. He was a popular guy, and people didn't want to believe anything bad about him. This revelation sent shockwaves through Maplewood. How could someone so trusted have a history of misconduct that had gone unaddressed? As these stories began to circulate, more individuals came forward with their own accounts, each adding layers to a narrative that painted Tom Harris as a figure who had exploited his position for years. The community's trust began to erode as people questioned how many others might have suffered in silence. In the wake of these revelations, investigators uncovered evidence suggesting that Emily Parker might not have been Tom's only victim. As they reviewed records and spoke with former acquaintances, they learned about other young women who had experienced uncomfortable encounters with him. One former classmate of Emily's shared her own story. "He always made me feel uneasy. He would linger too long and ask personal questions. I just thought it was weird at the time." The more investigators dug, the more they unearthed disturbing patterns of behavior, each account revealing a troubling history that had gone unnoticed by many in Maplewood. As these stories came to light, community members were left grappling with feelings of betrayal and anger. How could their trusted sheriff have hidden such darkness behind his badge? The emotional toll of these revelations ignited a firestorm within Maplewood. On one hand, there were those who rallied in support of Tom Harris, insisting he was innocent until proven guilty. "He's done so much for this town," one supporter shouted during a town hall meeting filled with tension and division. "We can't let rumors destroy his life." Conversely, a growing number of residents began organizing protests demanding justice for Emily Parker. Signs reading "Justice for Emily" and "No More Silence" filled the streets as demonstrators gathered outside the sheriff's office, chanting for accountability. The once peaceful atmosphere of Maplewood transformed into one charged with emotion, anger boiling over as people sought answers. Amidst this turmoil, candlelight vigils were held not only to honor Emily's memory but also to raise awareness about the broader issues surrounding abuse of power within law enforcement. Friends and family shared stories about her dreams and aspirations while calling for systemic change, an end to the culture of silence that allowed misconduct to flourish unchecked. As tensions mounted in Maplewood, investigators received an anonymous tip that would change everything once again. A lead suggesting there might be surveillance footage from a nearby business capturing events leading up to the shooting. The anticipation was palpable. Could this footage provide clarity or further complicate matters? The community held its breath as detectives worked tirelessly to obtain and analyze the footage. When it was finally released, everyone gathered around screens, eyes glued in anticipation. What they saw shocked them. Images of Tom's vehicle parked outside the sheriff's office shortly before Emily arrived were clear, but there was something else. A shadowy figure lingering near the entrance just moments before she walked in. Who was this figure? Was it an accomplice? Or someone who could shed light on what transpired inside? As speculation ran rampant throughout Maplewood, emotions surged once again. Trust was eroding faster than ever as residents questioned everything they thought they knew about their sheriff. With each twist in this unfolding drama, the revelation of past misconduct, other potential victims coming forward, and now this mysterious figure, the narrative surrounding Emily Parker's death grew increasingly complex. The stakes were higher than ever, justice hung in the balance as secrets continued to unravel. As January 23rd marked not only the anniversary of Emily's tragic death, but also a turning point for Maplewood, a moment when its residents would have to confront uncomfortable truths about trust, authority, and accountability within their community, the question remained, would justice prevail? Or would this case continue spiraling into darkness as more secrets emerged from the shadows? The answers lay just beyond reach, a haunting reminder that sometimes truth can be more elusive than anyone ever imagined. As the investigation into Emily Parker's tragic death reached its climax, the town of Maplewood stood at a crossroads, grappling with the weight of revelations that had surfaced over the past months. The evidence, once scattered and ambiguous, began to coalesce into a narrative that would ultimately lead to a resolution, albeit one fraught with complexities and unanswered questions. Investigators worked tirelessly to piece together the timeline of events leading to Emily's death. Key testimonies from witnesses played a crucial role in establishing both the context and the circumstances surrounding that fateful night. The anonymous tip about surveillance footage had opened a new avenue for detectives, and as they reviewed the grainy images, they began to see a clearer picture. The footage revealed Tom Harris's vehicle parked outside his office shortly before Emily arrived. But it was not just Tom's car that caught their attention. The shadowy figure lingering near the entrance was now identified as a local handyman, known for his erratic behavior and history of substance abuse. This man had been seen in the area frequently, often lurking around town and displaying unsettling tendencies. Investigators quickly brought him in for questioning. During his interrogation, he claimed he had been in the vicinity that night but denied any involvement in Emily's death. However, inconsistencies in his story raised further suspicions. Detectives uncovered that he had a prior conviction for harassment against young women, a detail that sent chills through the community. Was it possible that this man had crossed paths with Emily on that fateful night? As investigators delved deeper into Tom's past, former colleagues came forward with chilling accounts of his behavior. Stories of inappropriate comments made toward female deputies and unsettling encounters with young women in town. These testimonies painted a disturbing portrait of a man who had wielded his authority without accountability. Forensic findings also played a pivotal role in building the case against Tom Harris. Ballistics tests confirmed that the bullet recovered from Emily's body matched Tom's service weapon, a detail that could not be overlooked. Additionally, gunshot residue found on Tom's hands provided further evidence linking him to the shooting. The emotional weight of these findings became palpable during court proceedings as family members of both Emily and Tom sat in silence, grappling with the reality of what was unfolding before them. The courtroom was filled with tension. Every testimony felt like a nail driven deeper into the coffin of trust that once defined Maplewood. With mounting evidence against him, authorities moved swiftly to charge Sheriff Tom Harris with first-degree murder. The announcement sent shockwaves through Maplewood. Residents were torn between disbelief and anger. How could someone they had trusted so implicitly be capable of such an act? As details emerged during preliminary hearings, it became clear that this case was not just about one tragic event, but rather a culmination of years of unchecked power dynamics within law enforcement. The community began to rally around Emily's family, demanding justice not only for her, but also for all those who had suffered in silence under the weight of authority misused. Despite the charges filed against Tom Harris, unanswered questions lingered like shadows over Maplewood. Was there a cover-up within the sheriff's department? How many other victims remained silent? As more individuals came forward with their own stories of encounters with Tom, it became evident that this case was far from isolated. Community reactions were mixed. Some residents organized protests demanding accountability, while others held rallies in support of Tom, insisting he was innocent until proven guilty. The division within Maplewood grew more pronounced as emotions ran high. Friends turned against friends as alliances formed based on beliefs about justice and loyalty. As January 23rd marked not only the anniversary of Emily Parker's tragic death, but also a pivotal moment for Maplewood, a moment when its residents would have to confront uncomfortable truths about trust and authority, the question remained, would justice truly be served? Or would this case continue spiraling into darkness as more secrets emerged from the shadows? The trial loomed on the horizon like an approaching storm. Anticipation filled the air as residents speculated about what would unfold in court. Would new evidence surface? Would testimonies reveal even deeper layers of betrayal? As tensions mounted and emotions surged within this once peaceful town, all eyes remained fixed on what would happen next, a gripping tale woven through tragedy and heartache, leaving everyone yearning for resolution in a story still very much alive. As we reflect on this complex narrative filled with twists and turns, one marked by betrayal, power struggles, and emotional turmoil, we invite you to share your theories on what really happened on that fateful night. Was it an act of desperation or something more calculated? How do we ensure accountability within our communities when those sworn to protect us become perpetrators of harm? The story of Emily Parker serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to action. A reminder that we must remain vigilant in seeking justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves while holding our leaders accountable for their actions. As we stand at this crossroads together, united by grief yet divided by uncertainty, we must ask ourselves, what will it take to restore trust within our community? What truths remain hidden beneath layers of silence? As January 23rd approaches, a date forever etched in Maplewood's history, the answers may finally begin to surface, revealing not only what happened on that tragic night, but also how far-reaching its impact will be for years to come. As we reach the culmination of this gripping tale surrounding the tragic death of Emily Parker, we invite you to reflect on the complexities of justice, accountability, and the role of community in seeking truth. The story has unfolded with twists and turns that have left us questioning not only the actions of Sheriff Tom Harris, but also the systems that allowed such a tragedy to occur. Now, more than ever, your voice matters. We encourage you to like this story if you found it compelling, comment below with your thoughts on the case, and subscribe for updates as we continue to explore issues of police accountability and community justice. What do you think should happen next? Should there be a thorough investigation into the practices within law enforcement that allowed Tom Harris's misconduct to go unchecked for so long? How can communities ensure that they hold their leaders accountable moving forward? Your insights are invaluable as we navigate these challenging discussions together. Share your theories about what really happened on that fateful night. Was it an act of desperation, or were there deeper motivations at play? As January 23, 2025 approaches, a date forever marked by tragedy, the questions surrounding Emily's death remain open-ended. The trial may have begun, but the implications of this case extend far beyond the courtroom. It has ignited conversations about the need for systemic change within law enforcement agencies across the country. We invite you to share this story with your friends and family, sparking discussions about the importance of accountability and transparency in our communities. Let's ensure that Emily Parker's story is not forgotten and that it serves as a catalyst for change. In a world where trust is often taken for granted, let us stand together in advocating for justice, not just for Emily, but for all those who have been silenced by power. Your engagement can help raise awareness and push for reforms that protect vulnerable individuals from those who would exploit their positions of authority. As we reflect on this tragic narrative, a tale woven through heartbreak, betrayal, and a quest for justice, let us remember that each one of us has the power to effect change. By sharing our thoughts and experiences, we contribute to a collective movement toward accountability. Join us in this important conversation. What steps do you believe should be taken to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future? How can communities empower themselves to speak out against injustice? Your voice is crucial in shaping a future where trust is restored and justice prevails. Let's honor Emily Parker's memory by committing ourselves to making a difference together. Like, comment, subscribe, and share your thoughts today.